Hello everyone, my name is Feng and I'm from Zhejiang University. Today I'm going to share our latest work on blockchain system optimization, SlimArchive, a lightweight architecture for Ethereum archive nodes. This is a joint work with BlockSec. With the rapid development of blockchain technologies, the performance and scalability issues are becoming more and more important. Now, most works focus on optimizing blockchain systems through three perspectives. The first is faster consensus protocol. The second is better execution machine, such as parallel execution, pipeline blockchain, and smart contract just-in-time compilation. The third is improved storage engine, including sharding, replication, state model optimization, and data compression. In this work, we focus on optimizing the state model of current Ethereum archive nodes. Ethereum is a transaction-driven state machine. The Ethereum virtual machine reads persistent world state, executes transactions, and advances world state. Ethereum has an account-based world state. Each account is identified by a unique address. Account may have extra storage space, which is referenced by the storage root. States are encoded as Merkle Patricia Tries, also known as world state trees. The Ethereum Merkle Patricia Trie is a 16-radix Merkle tree. Merkle tree is a vector commitment protocol. Data are stored in leaf nodes. Hash pointers link parents and children. For example, B1 is the hash of the concatenation of A1 and A2. B2 is a hash of the concatenation of A3 and A4. And the commitment is a hash of the concatenation of B1 and B2. The Merkle tree enables efficient proof generation by providing all the nodes on the path from root to leaf. For example, to verify A3, the prover only needs to provide B1, A3, and A4. The verifier will validate whether the commitment equals to the hash of the nodes provided by the prover. Ethereum has the 16-radix account and storage tries. Each time a block is processed, the state trees are updated, and a new state root is recorded in the corresponding block header. Thus, the state transition in Ethereum is a block. Merkle Patricia Trie is used for state validation and data authentication in Ethereum. For state validation, the Ethereum node computes the state root and compare it with that received from the remote miners to validate the synchronization process. Data authentication is used by light nodes, which only have state roots to query states along with Merkle proofs from untrusted remote nodes. Ethereum nodes are categorized as light node, full node, and archive node. Light node does not maintain any states. Full node maintains only the latest world state, which means historical states or historical Merkle Patricia Tries are pruned as the blockchain progresses. While archive node maintain all historical states, this means the Merkle Patricia Trie at each block is persisted. And obviously, this requires more disk resource. Also consuming more storage, archive node is becoming more and more important within current Ethereum ecosystem because it can be used for testing and analyzing smart contracts and transactions. Archive nodes grants the access to historical states. Based on this rich information, users can profile historical transactions, such as analyze the data flow and control flow of a transaction execution. Besides, users can also simulate transactions at a historical time point for analyzing and testing. Archive node has been widely used in academia. It can be used for detecting attack transactions and smart contract vulnerabilities. Second, archive node is used for smart contract fast testing. Third, quantitative and arbitrage researchers use archive node for backtesting. Last but not least, archive node enables temporal analysis. In industry, more and more users need to dive into their transactions to better understand the execution logic because of the increasing transaction complexity. Thus, many infrastructure service providers such as BlockSec and Tenderly release products for debugging and analyzing historical transactions. All of the above use cases depend on historical states and archive nodes. However, current Ethereum archive node suffers from the performance and scalability problems. As of now, an Ethereum archive node has consumed about 18 trillion byte storage. Besides, state access in archive node is extremely slow, and it consumes the majority of the transaction execution time. We identified two root causes of the problems. The first is an inefficient Merkle Patricia Trie. Since states are stored in leaf nodes, the intermediate nodes containing the proof information consume excessive extra storage. We analyzed the state trie at block 18 million. There are about 220 million leaf nodes. However, the intermediate nodes have reached about 290 million. The states with a storage of about 15 gigabytes consumes a total storage of 40 gigabytes. And unfortunately, the storage utilization is only 36.7%. Besides, since state access requires searching the Merkle Patricia Trie from root to leaf, each state access is amplified to log n operations. As of block 18 million, the block height reaches 8.6, which means each state access is amplified to an average of 8.6 database operations. And obviously, the access amplification will be enlarged as the progress of the blockchain. Thus, our first solution is to replace the Merkle Patricia Trie, recalling the use cases of Merkle Patricia Trie in Ethereum. Let's say state validation and data authentication. For state validation, we know that historical states become immutable after synchronization. Thus, the validation of historical states is no more required. Let's consider data authentication. Before we go further, we would like to answer a question: is data authentication for historical states necessary? In most real-world scenarios, the answer is no. We observe that Merkle proofs are rarely used in current Ethereum ecosystem. Besides, blockchain nodes are considered trusted by users in most scenarios. Furthermore, archive nodes are primarily used for testing and analytical purposes, where performance is more critical. However, no matter how you try to optimize the data authentication mechanism, it still carries a high price. Thus, in most real-world usage scenarios, the data authentication of historical states is not required, which means in these circumstances, the Merkle Patricia Trie structure is not necessary. Thus, we could employ a compacted and flattened data model to minimize intermediate data and simplify data access. This is our first solution, a trade-off between data authentication and performance and cost effectiveness, a solution tailored for most real-world scenarios. The second root cause of the problems is a coarse-grained state granularity. Current Ethereum has block-level historical states, However, these coarse-grained block-level historical states introduce much computation overhead when accessing the state at a transaction with a high position in the block. For example, if you want to trace transaction I in block N, the archive node requires to execute all transactions from 0 to I in block N to recover the target word state and produce result. In fact, only the execution of transaction I is effective, where the execution of other transactions are the overhead of preprocessing. To quantify how inefficiency this coarse-grained state granularity has, we use Geth to re-execute historical transactions and analyze the efficiency ratio. As transaction index increases, the pre-processing time grows and the efficiency ratio decreases rapidly. When transaction index reaches 200, the pre-processing cost exceeds 1 second, and the efficiency ratio is near zero. Thus, our second solution is refining the granularity of historical states. We observed a decoupled state transition mechanism in current Ethereum technology stack. Let's say at the top consensus layer, the state transition granularity is a block. But when we take a look at the lower execution layer, let's say inside the Ethereum virtual machine, the transactions are executed sequentially, which means the basic unit causing state transition is the transaction. Thus, the granularity of state transition at the low-level execution layer is a transaction. Consequently, we could refine the granularity of historical states to a transaction to eliminate the overhead caused by the pre-processing. Based on our insights and observations, we propose our lightweight, flexible, and high-performance SlimArchive. SlimArchive is designed to maintain flattened, compacted, and fine-grained historical states by flattening the minimum state changes of each transaction required for the word state. SlimArchive has 3 key components. The first is a recorder. It is an instrumented Ethereum virtual machine that collects state changes of each transaction execution. The second is an encoder. It encodes state changes as state temporal archive, which is a flattened representation of our transaction-level historical states. And finally, the state temporal archive is persisted in the key value store. Then, the state generator is used to recover the historical states at any specific time point, and it provides query interfaces for both the Ethereum virtual machine and the external users. The recorder collects the temporal data and post account and storage states of each transactions. We ignore authentication data and runtime data to reduce storage overhead. To be completeness, the recorder not only collects state changes of user-sent normal transactions, but also collects state changes of virtual transactions, such as the consensus procedure and the genesis block. To collect state changes, the recorder first tracks the read-write side of each transaction execution, and then it removes unchanged states for deduplication. The right bottom part shows an example of the state changes collected by the recorder. The wrapped Ether deposit transaction produced 4 changes regarding account and storage states. Then, the encoder encodes each state change into the state temporal archive, which is a key value pair with 3 parts. The first is the state key. It represents which state is changed. The state key is a concatenation of the 1-byte state flag and the state ID, such as storage or address. The second is temporal key. It represents when the state change occurred. The temporal key is a concatenation of block number and transaction index. The last is the state value. It represents what the state is after the transaction. That's why we call it post-state. Note that state key and temporal key are aligned. Thus, the flattened state temporal archive maintains a partial chronological order, which means each entity's state changes are placed chronologically. This table details the encoding rules for state temporal archive. The Slim account is a structure describing the status of an account, and the transaction index in the temporal key guarantees our transaction-level historical states. Now, we have constructed our flattened, compacted, and fine-grained historical states. The state generator is used to fetch historical states at any specific time point. Thanks to our chronological state temporal archive, querying the state at a specific time point equals to seeking the last state change before that time. Thus, we can construct a search scope with the lower bound as state key and the upper bound as a concatenation of state key and temporal key. Then, we can easily find the last state change with the search scope. In evaluation, we choose Geth and Aragon for comparison because they are state-of-the-art solutions for Ethereum archive nodes. We also use real-world Ethereum transactions and states as workloads. We evaluate the synchronization performance. Geth spent only 40.7 hours on generating historical states, and it uses only 267.6 gigabyte storage to save historical states. In summary, SlimArchive achieves faster synchronization and requires less disk. Second, we evaluate the access performance of historical states. In general, SlimArchive has a total throughput of about 7,000 queries per second, which is 19 times and 2.2 times higher than Geth and Aragon, respectively. Besides, SlimArchive also consumes less disk and memory resources. Last, we evaluate the performance of transaction execution. Thanks to our transaction-level historical states, transaction execution no longer requires the time-consuming processing stage. Thus, SlimArchive achieves remarkable speeds up regarding transaction execution compared to Geth and Aragon. And obviously, the speed up will be further enlarged as the transaction index increases, which means the larger block body, the better performance improvement. In summary, in this work, we first identify the inefficient Merkle Patricia Trie and the coarse-grained state granularity as the limitations of current Ethereum archive nodes. Then, based on our observations and insights, we proposed our solutions. We first replaced the Merkle Patricia Trie with a compacted and flattened data model. Then, we refined the granularity of state transition with transaction level. Finally, the evaluation results demonstrate that our approach significantly saves disk space, improves access throughput, and speeds up transaction execution compared to state-of-the-art solutions. Thank you for your listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you again.